Hey everyone, welcome to Photomechanicking Your Workflow. Full disclosure, this is a screen recording of my presentation at the 2023 UPAA Symposium at the University of Notre Dame. I'm making this about a week and a half after the symposium for folks who couldn't make it or had to leave the session a little early. So with that, let's jump right in. I'll start with a very brief introduction. My name is James Brosher and I'm a photographer at Indiana University. I've been with IU since 2014. I work out of the University Communications and Marketing Office, which is our central marketing and communications unit, serving not only our Bloomington campus where I'm based, but also our 7 campuses around the state of Indiana. In my former life, I was a newspaper photojournalist in Wyoming, as well as just down the street from Notre Dame, actually, at the South Bend Tribune. I've been a photomechanic user since 2010, and I actually learned how to use it and started using it when I was a junior in college. So what is this breakout session? I'm going to give a brief overview of Photomechanic, then introduce a couple key features that we use at IU every day. Those include variables, code replacements, and snapshots. Finally, I'm going to show a demo of how I go from a memory card to the client, all the way through the process using Photomechanic as a key part of our workflow. Just a quick disclosure, this is a way. This is by no means the way. I believe there's no absolute right or wrong way to use Photomechanic or to edit pictures in general. I'm going to show our process that we've used at IU since 2014. Please feel free to take bits and pieces of this and adapt them to your needs, or feel free to copy the entire thing. That's totally fine as well. At the end of the presentation, I will have a QR code that points to a folder with files and documentation that we use at IU. You're more than happy to share that as needed. All right, so what is Photomechanic? Photomechanic, just the textbook definition, it's a photo management tool for ingesting, culling, captioning, and exporting digital photographs. It was released to the public February 4th, 1998, but the real debut for it was actually for the Associated Press during Super Bowl 32, Broncos versus Packers on January 25th, 1998. It is a program that is very much so kind of built for speed and captioning and culling and selecting pictures, and the fact that the AP is kind of in the DNA of the program, I think says a lot about kind of the makeup and why it's so popular even today. It's very popular with news and sports photojournalists. As I mentioned, I used it a lot when I was a newspaper photographer, and I've kind of kept that going even in my career in higher education as well. It's very similar in functionality to Adobe Bridge and Adobe Lightroom, but the huge difference between those Adobe products and Photomechanic is the way that Photomechanic renders raw files. Lightroom and Capture One and Bridge render each raw file individually, whereas Photomechanic actually reads the embedded JPEG within each raw file. It's the same JPEG that's kind of stuck in a raw file, so that when you take a photo, you can actually see it on the back of your camera. So the thing that you see on the back of the camera is actually what you're seeing in Photomechanic. So that allows you to kind of whip through photos very, very quickly. In Lightroom, a lot of times it'll kind of sit there for a second or two, which doesn't seem like a lot of time, but if you're looking through thousands of pictures from a shoot, it's going to take a long time to kind of render those in general. The cost of the program is $169, but I actually just found this out recently. There's an EDU discount. You can get it for $67.60. On the slides, if you click on that link right there, it'll actually take you to the kind of knowledge base article on the Photomechanic website that will walk you through the process of how to go about getting that EDU discount. Just a public service announcement right off the top. Make sure you set your camera clock. This is something that I constantly, when I've taught photojournalism or worked with interns, this is kind of the #1 thing I always kind of hammer home is make sure before you go out on a shoot that your camera clocks are correct. It's very essential, especially with photo mechanic, because we're going to use some variables later in the demo that I show, or I'll show some variables later in the demo that rely on the date and time being correct. If they're off by a little bit, if they're off by 12 hours and you're doing a shoot at 8 o'clock at night and it thinks it's the next day, that can really throw things off and kind of make a chaotic situation where you have to kind of go back through and rename some things. So just always off the top, I always make sure to do that. Sometimes I'm even not the best. We have one of our campuses actually in Central Time, and I have to make an effort every time I go to IU Northwest in Gary, Indiana, to take a moment to set my clocks to the proper time. Same thing with daylight savings time. I think half the year I will kind of forget that as well. All right, so we'll jump into our first kind of pro tip. One of the first features that we use a ton, variables. According to the official photo mechanic documentation, variables are defined as placeholders, but I like to think of them more as shortcuts. Variables allow you to duplicate metadata created by your camera, such as a date, aperture, shutter speed, etc., or metadata created by you, so caption information, city, state, location, from one metadata field to another. And it might not make a ton of sense right here, but later in the demo I'll kind of walk through how we use variables and how it can save a lot of time when it comes to inputting metadata to your photos. The overall upshot of this is it saves time by not making you have to type the same thing over and over in separate metadata fields. Variables are always shown inside of curly brackets. So there's an example of a variable right here on the right side in the curly brackets. That variable, if you put that in any metadata field in Photo Mechanic and hit save, it would bring in the aperture from the EXIF data that's attached to the file, assuming that your camera is recording that properly. So if I go out and shoot something at f8, I put that squiggly bracket inside of a caption field and it'll show f8. It can be helpful, if you want to, if for some reason you need to have variable like as a keyword or something, if you want to sort by, every photo is shot at 1.4, for example. Next pro tip feature is code replacement. It's a feature of Photo Mechanic allowing users to shorten the captioning process by associating codes with long titles, names, locations, etc. in any IPTC field. And I will actually walk through later in the demo how to create one from scratch. And I'll just do a very basic one to kind of show you guys the cadence of how you would need to set it up. The second bullet point is kind of here the technical information. It needs to be a UTF-8 text file with 2 or more tab-separated columns. You can either use Excel, Google Sheets, or a plain text editor like Text Wrangler, or like just even the Mac OS like plain text app. You can use that. That's totally fine. You just have to put a tab in between the fields. This is most commonly used, I feel like, by sports photographers. And so the way that they would do that, and I've put a couple examples over here on the right. So the bottom one would be kind of a code possibly used by a sports photographer. So the equal sign is what's called a delimiter character. That is the way that you're telling the program, okay, get ready, here comes a code. So pay attention, of what is coming after that. And then the ending equal sign is kind of tells the program that, okay, we're done with this code. So I'll give a couple examples of code replacements. Code replacements are great when you want to avoid typing long titles. So here's a really kind of a contemporary example. This is King Charles's official title, Charles III, by the grace of God, of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and his and other realms and territories, King, head of the Commonwealth, defender of the faith. So if I was the photographer for the king and I didn't want to have to type that in every photo caption, I would create a code, for example, equals KC equals, so King Charles. So when I type that code, everything at the bottom here could pop out. That would be one good example of saving me a lot of time in the captioning process. And also, I probably wouldn't trust myself to do that properly every time. I mentioned sports photographers using using code replacement a lot. This is a pretty good example of kind of how you do that during a basketball game. So I-23, if we type that code, we could get IU forward Trace Jackson Davis, who's on the right in this photo. And then Pete 15, we could do Purdue center Zach Edey. So you could create a code replacement file and load the roster in and have everything identified by number. So as long as you can see the jersey number, you can save quite a bit of time when it comes to captioning photos after the game. Here's an example from the spring at IU, actually. I created code replacement files for all of our Level 500 riders, which drastically sped up the captioning process and made it a lot easier to be able to identify the riders on the bikes. Just because when they're all wearing helmets and glasses, it's a little bit harder to kind of do the detective work to figure out who's who. So just to kind of walk through this replacement, on the photo on the right, in the middle, the girl on the green bike, on the bike there's a number 1, and then she has a bib number on her back with number 1. So the number on the bike is actually the team number. That's the place that they qualified in the race. And then there's 4 riders for each team, so they'll have a bib number 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I wanted to identify the rider in the green, I would type equals 1-1, and then I would get Alpha Chi Omega rider Claire Bruin. And then the rider on the left, you can't quite see her bike number, but it's 13, so equals 13-1, Melanzana rider Abby Green. So that's kind of the way that I set the code replacement up. If you have time to do these before a game or a big event, it could be a little bit of work beforehand, but it saves a ton of time in post and helps you get photos out a lot quicker. All right, so with that, I'm going to jump over and do a quick demo. And I actually have a photo shoot that I did back in June. I'm sure a lot of us have done these kind of shoots where we have a president speaking to the local chamber of commerce. That's essentially what the shoot is. So first step, here I am in Photo Mechanic. I'm going to back out. I'm going to go to my Finder. Just here on my local machine, here's all of my photo shoots that I've done here in June. But I'm going to create a new folder, and the way that we do it at IU, when we create a shoot folder, is we do the year, so 2023, and then we're going to do 06, and then 14, so 06 for June, 14 for the day, because it was on June 14th, and then EEGC. It was the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation luncheon. So our president was speaking at the local kind of chamber of commerce situation. So I'll just show, these aren't the most thrilling photos I probably could have picked in hindsight, but this kind of gives you a sense of kind of how I use the program in our workflow. So I'm going to click on that folder, and then within each of our shoot folders, we create 2 subfolders. So I'll create one called full res JPEGs, and then another one called raw. And so what we'll do is we'll actually ingest our card into this raw folder. And then once I do my captioning and kick them over to Photoshop to edit, I will save them into the full res JPEG folder, and then the photos from this will actually get uploaded to Photo Shelter as our kind of final step. Right. So I'm going to go back to Photo Mechanic, and I want to insert my card. I realize you guys can't see it right now. Insert my card into the card reader, and then I'm going to hit Command G. Oh, actually, it's going to pop right up. If it doesn't pop right up, to get the ingest window, it'd be Command G. And then now that we're on the ingest window, I'll kind of walk through kind of a couple different things here. So ingest is the process by which Photo Mechanic copies your images from a source, often a memory card, to a destination, so computer hard drive, external hard drive, etc. The nice thing about ingest is it can automate tasks involving involved in getting your images from a source to the correct destination. Such as like renaming them, adding metadata, creating folders, etc. There's a lot of different things you can do, especially using variables. Um, um, and the nice thing is that ingest works as a background test. You don't really have to wait for the ingest process to finish before you can start working on your pictures. As soon as I start this ingest, you'll see it'll pop up on the contact sheet in the background. So I can already start going through the pictures as they're being copied. Right. So first thing I'm going to do, let me back out, I'll just explain this. I'm going to hit this button up on the top right to define where I want the images to copy to. So this will be our primary destination. Click on this, and I'm going to back out to June, and then I'm going to find the BEDC luncheon folder. Click on that, then click on the raw. Let's open. Okay. I will point out on this too that you can actually designate a secondary destination. So if it was a really important shoot, like if you're doing a wedding or as part of freelance, or if it was like a big marketing campaign and you're like really worried about making sure you have duplicates, you could hit this secondary button and actually pick like an external hard drive or a server or something, and you could have it essentially copy these to 2 different locations, so that way you have like redundancy. Okay, so our next thing, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to click, make sure that we have the EOS Digital, the memory card selected. I will mention that I'm not doing it for this instance, but you can ingest multiple memory cards at once. If, for example, this hard drive was a memory card, I could ingest that one as well. There's a cool little feature down here called incremental ingest. If you click that, it'll make sure that you only copy new photos. So if you go out and do a shoot and then you dump, say you're doing commencement, you go out and shoot some photos and you come back and you dump, but you don't wipe your memory card because you want to keep that redundant copy, I would click this box because that way it won't keep ingesting the same files over and over again. It'll know which ones it's already added. I usually just wipe my memory cards. I live a little dangerously in that regard. I'm sure I'll probably stop doing that if I get burned by it eventually, but so I don't use this feature, but that's another option. I'm gonna go next to the rename section right here. This is super helpful. This will rename the files as they're actually dumped from the card. I'm using a couple of variables here, as you can see. So at IU, the way that we name our image files is 2023 06 for the month, and then 14 for the day. In order to get all of that, all I have to do is put this in date sort in squiggly brackets. As long as my camera date is set correctly, that will spit out 2023 06 14 as part of it. So the nice thing is I don't have to type a bunch of stuff. I can just put that one variable in there. Sequence. This is a sequence variable, and I can go ahead and hit this and hit reset. You can also change the number of zeros. So if you just want a couple zeros, I do 4. If you shoot a ton, you could do 5. I usually have never went over 9,999, so 4 usually does it for me. I will mention, we were talking about variables. On every dialog where you can use a variable in Photo Mechanic, there's a variable button down here, which is kind of nice, and it's actually like a little guide. So when you click on that, you can see all the different variables that are available, and there are quite a few. So for example, if I go and find date source, the one that date sort, the one that I just showed, I click on that. It'll give you a definition of what the variable is, essentially. Capture date of the photo according to the camera or file creation time. This can be used for sorting since the format is always year and 4 digits, month and 2, and date and 2. And if you clicked, if I was wanting to input this on it, you could double click on it and it'll put that variable there. So that's a nice feature. All right, so I think everything on these are ready to go. Obviously, there's a lot of different little options here you can play with in terms of copy and locked and unlocked files. If you guys use the protect feature on your cameras, raw and non-raw. I can't quite speak. Raw and non-raw files. So if you shot raw plus JPEG, just for the sake of like sending photos directly from camera, and then later just wanted to copy the raw files, you could select copy raw files only. That's another little option there. So with that, I'm going to click on the metadata IPTC template. I'm actually going to clear this out real fast just to start. All right, so this is the metadata IPTC template. It was previously called the IPTC stationary pad in previous Photomechanic versions. I believe they changed this at around version 5, maybe version 6. This dialog gives you control for IPTC metadata to efficiently add information to individual, group, or a batch of pictures. If you want to add metadata to the pictures, make sure that the boxes here are checked. If these are unchecked, that means that what is in these fields won't be written to the file. So if I typed in a caption here, but this was unchecked, it would not write that. So just a little tip there. I mentioned snapshots is one of the things I wanted to show. So on all dialogues in Photomechanic, this little lightning bolt down at the lower left-hand corner, it's called a snapshot. It essentially allows you to basically take kind of like a snapshot of what is going on in this this dialog box. The nice thing about that is it kind of allows you to create templates. So I have a whole set of like little templates here that I've created for various things that I do at IU. I have just the general kind of the one or the everyday one that I would use. I've got one for a marketing campaign that we just did recently. I have a special one for our commencement. I have little 500 staff headshots. Just kind of a way to speed up my workflow. Campus scenic. So if I go out and shoot photos of campus, we have special keywords that we would use for that, and so those are all filled out. So for this instance, because it's the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation luncheon, I'm just going to start with our standard template. And as you can see here, it pops in a lot of different information. And I'll start with up here in the caption field. I like to pre-write my captions, at least half of them. And so when it's written to the file during ingest, basically all I need to do is kind of write, half a sentence of describing what's going on in the photo. So for example, this is the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation luncheon. So I'm going to type during the Bloomington okay. So for this instance, typically what we would do is we would use this location variable to duplicate what is written over here. At IU, we use the location field for our different campuses. This is a nice way to distinguish between when we're on one campus, and it helps sorting the photos later in Photo Shelter by having all the campuses kind of tagged and keyworded in specific ways. So I have IU Bloomington over here. This is going to be IU Bloomington here. So as it stands right now, if this wasn't a luncheon, because in this instance it wasn't on campus, but it was in town, so I'll delete this variable. But say this was a campus scenic, it would say at IU Bloomington. So it's going to pull the location. This variable is going to pull whatever is in this field here on day of week. DOW is day of week. So I believe this was maybe a Wednesday. Wednesday, month name AP. So that'll just be June, but if it was January, it'd be JAN period. You can also just do month name and take the AP off of there. We like to do AP just in case the photos end up getting distributed to local media, for example. Day, that's, I guess in this the instance, the 14th, so 1/4 is what's going to show up there. Year 4, 2023. So all of this information here, all of these variables, as I mentioned, the importance of setting your camera clock, all of these come from the camera clock. So if the camera clock's off, these are all going to be off, and it's going to say like Sunday, May 30th or something. So that's one nice thing is I don't have to type all of the information as long as I have my camera clock set correctly. As I mentioned, in this instance, it was off campus, so I'm going to take off the @IU Bloomington because it was just in the city. All right. So now all the pictures that I dump are going to have half of the caption already written during the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation luncheon. And actually, since a lot of them are just our different senior administrators speaking, I'm just going to type speaks. And that way all I need to do is basically put their title up here, who it is. And then I have a full sentence and my captioning is done. I mentioned over here that we use our location field for our campuses. There's a drop down right here where you can, these little drop down menus on the right are super, super handy, especially if you have like, information that you want typed a specific way over and over again. You can like load in the different campuses. So we have all of our campuses here. The nice thing about doing it this way is, I'm not typing Indiana University Bloomington, I'm typing IU Bloomington, and it stays consistent. Same thing with cities. You can preload a bunch of different cities. Basically any field in here you can do this with. And you can hit edit, and you can actually export these. So if you selected them all and hit export, and then you could, if you had another staffer you wanted to get this set up with, then you could take that file and actually import it into theirs. That's the nice way that we've kind of set up our whole staff so they have the exact same cities and campuses on ours. Okay, so we did the caption. I talked a little bit about kind of the city, state, or city, location, state over here. We'll go down here. Headline, that's one that we fill out, but it's not, I know a lot of folks don't fill it out. That's just kind of from my newspaper days. When we need to send something to the Associated Press, we would fill that out. I will mention too, in the documentation that I have at the end of the presentation, there's a PDF in there where for our staff, I went through and basically explained like how we fill out each of these fields in a little bit more detail. So that might be a good reference for those of you who are wanting to adapt a little bit of this to your workflow. Keywords are super. The nice thing about the variables is you can use them, anywhere in here, anywhere in any metadata dialog box, including the keywords. So since the end destination for us is PhotoShelter, and PhotoShelter, they tend to lean pretty heavily on keywords. And they're clickable. You can when you bring up a photo, you can scroll down on the right side and click on a keyword and see more pictures of the same that are keyworded the same way. We've adapted our PhotoShelter workflow to kind of flow a lot of things through the keywords because that helps our designers to sort and find things later. So here we've got, first off, city, that's just going to pull Bloomington. Location, IU Bloomington. That's really helpful because, as I mentioned, it's hard when we have so many campuses. If we're looking for something of a specific campus and not, if I'm looking for Bloomington photos and not IUPUI photos, that can help in the search by having that as a keyword. Category, each of our shoots, we have here's another drop down. These are all of our broad categories for the different types of shoots that we do. For this one, because it was like a social media, primarily for the president's social media, we're going to use communications on this one, but we have a couple different ones. If we're doing a market campaign, we'd use marketing, etc. And I'll mention too that this is also, all of these categories are spelled out in our in that PDF at the end of the presentation. Transref, we've got part of our office is fee for service, and so they'll actually have job numbers for shoots, and that's kind of helpful because the project managers that work with them can go into PhotoShelter and search the job number, and it'll pop up in the keyword field, and they're able to find pictures associated with that shoot. So that's one reason why we start putting that there. And by the way, if this is empty, so for this particular instance, we're not filling out the transref because this wasn't a billable photo shoot, so it's going to be blank. Photo Mechanic won't print like an empty variable, so that'll just be a blank spot, or that won't show up in the final thing. So don't feel like you have to go in and take that out if there's nothing in that field. You can just leave it as is. I'm going to go ahead and add in a few different keywords here. So this was luncheon, is indoors. BEDC for the name of the organization that she's speaking to. Let's see here. Okay. And then obviously, you can flush more of these out. If you use structured keywords, you can use a keyword tree as part of it. Also, like some of the popular, you can preload some of the most popular keywords that you use into these into the drop down menu here. I guess not really any that are applicable right for this specific shoot, but if I was doing an aerial shot of campus or something, it's nice because if I have a keyword and I don't want to misspell it, I don't know how many times I've misspelled student, believe it or not, but I can click that and then it'll just print that in there. Check that out. I mentioned earlier the checkboxes. So on this snapshot, all of these all these uppercase, all caps with the stars, these are like little reminders to me and to our staff that we need to fill something out here, or this is like a field that gets used. But as of right now, that's not going to print to the picture, the picture's IPTC. It's not going to get attached to there unless I hit that checkbox. But the nice thing is once I start typing something here, it will automatically check that box. For this instance, I'm going to leave it unchecked. Down through here, I mentioned drop downs. One nice thing is we have all of our photographers here, so if I'm doing a live edit for someone on location like a commencement or something, I can just go in here and grab their title. So my name, my title, we've got our copyright with year 4, so that way, once again with the pulling the information from the camera's clock, so it'll know that it's 2023. Our photo credit style is my name / Indiana University. So the combination of this is a very kind of a combination in this field, so it's going to have my name pulled from here, and then source pulled from there, and then and then my name / Indiana University is going to end up in the end of the caption up here as well. So credit, that's a variable for this field right here. Copyright URL. This is helpful in Google image search now. If a photo is copyrighted, it'll actually have like a little hyperlink. So if this photo ends up on Google, if someone finds it on Google Images and they click on it, it'll take them to this website. So if you have the copyright URL, you might want to make it so that it's like a page where there's contact information for your department or something, and then having the usage right terms is helpful as well because we have our email address in here. Title, object name. So for these, we always do kind of whatever the title of the assignment is. So this is the BEDC luncheon. Right. And I think that is everything that I need to fill out at this point before we ingest. So this is kind of a broad, kind of doing it a little bit in broad strokes here. I will say that for those of you who just downloaded Photo Mechanic and are opening it up, you're probably saying, well, this looks a lot different than mine. There may be more fields here. I think there might be like a description, another kind of bigger field like below the caption. Real quickly, let me show, you can customize all of that. So I'm going to close the ingest box, go to settings, and then I'm going to go to accessibility. And right here, this button, click on this, and you can turn fields on and off, and you can also rename them. So, I mentioned the field. You can actually change the name of, if I wanted the description / caption to be called just caption, I could type caption in here and it would change it. Most of you will probably see there's a field called extended description. That's like kind of a bigger field. I have that one turned off because we don't use it, and it just kind of takes up more screen space. And although I'm on a larger monitor now, on my laptop when I'm away from the office, it's going to be a little bit harder to see. So you can actually turn quite a few of these off if you're not using them. These are all the left side ones that we see, and then here's all the right side ones. So, for example, a good example would be location here. For us, that would be campus. So when I go back to, so if I did hit save on that one, where it showed I limited on the right side, it would be campus now. Cancel. Same thing, the IPTC info box, the one for individual photos that I'll show a little bit later, you can also customize that one as well. This program is a little bit like an onion. There's a lot of layers. You can go as deep or not. If you're not comfortable, that's kind of there's a lot that you can go. You can go down a rabbit hole with this and do a lot of different customizations if you'd like. So I'm going to bring up back to the ingest field. So I'm going to get ready to dump the card here. I'm going to rename. I'm going to set up the rename to make sure that everything gets named properly. So for this, BEPC lunch. Okay. So 2023-06-14 underscore. We use a slug, kind of describing what the shoot is, and then underscore, and then we use 2-letter, our initials for each photographer. That way we can just look at the file name and kind of see who shot it, especially if it's a situation where it's been uploaded to a website and the metadata has been pulled off of it. We find that that's helpful to help track down the pictures later if we need to. Okay, so I believe everything is ready to go. So go ahead and hit ingest. Right, and now it's copying the files onto my local hard drive here. Over here on the lower left, there's actually a little kind of task bar. You can click on this and it'll bring up and it'll show you the progress of the ingest. This also is where when you're uploading files, you can see the progress as well. So this view, as it's dumping, I'll just talk a little bit about this view. This is the contact sheet. This is kind of the view that where you can see all your pictures. This is the point where you'd be calling pictures, trying to kind of edit down. If you've used Bridge, it's pretty similar. You've got kind of 3 different ways you can actually call down pictures. 3 main ways that I like to use. There's the different color classes up here on the right. You've also got stars. That's obviously very close to Bridge. And then you can also tag files. So if you hit the little box here under each picture, you can tag it. This was a situation, this specific shoot was a situation where I was trying to turn it around quickly for our social media team because they wanted to use it on the president's Instagram. So during the actual shoot, I was tagging pictures, so using the protect function on my Canon. You can also use stars, but the nice thing is, as I'm dumping these, I can go up here to the top and select tag pictures, and then I'm only seeing the files that I've tagged. So these are the ones that, at least in camera, I thought, okay, this might be a winner. This might be, a quick picture I can turn around. And here's one of our president just popped in. So this is very helpful, like when we do events and when we're trying to do work very quickly. I can tag on the camera, get it dumped into Photo Mechanic, and then sort by the tagged pictures. But as I'm going through here, so let's say I like that one. I like to use color codes. So on the keyboard, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I believe is the last one. I believe there's only, oh, there's 8. Okay, so 1 through 8. And then 0 will take it off. But I usually like to just go through and just hit 1. If this was a winner, and then let's go back to the tagged files. So let's say I want to use this one as well. I hit 1 for that. You can hit Control and then hit 1, and you get 1 star, or I guess 5 stars would be kind of more similar to Bridge for a winner. So Control on the keyboard, 5, and that'll add 5 stars to the picture. And then if I wanted to just see which ones have a star rating, I can click off them up here. If I wanted to see the ones that I've color coded, so let's do this one. There we go. So there we go. Let's let this continue to dump for just a second here. And I mentioned this is pretty quick. I'll just kind of run through. So, these are all raw files. These are all CR3s. So, I'm going to click all here. That way we can see all of them. Start from the top. So, it's really quick. I'm not on a solid state hard drive. If I was on an SSD right now, you would probably see this a lot faster. But this is fairly quick, though. I mean, even for my older Fusion drive that I'm on right now in the office, it still renders the RAWs pretty quickly. And I think this is an R5, so I may have had it on the H+ mode. So I've got a few more pictures than I need from this particular event. So that gives you kind of a sense of how quickly it can run through it. And as I'm doing that, I can obviously be hitting like, okay, I want to keep this file, so I'll hit 2. I want to make it red. If I said like, oh, I really like this one. This is one of our faculty members, by the way, who's an economics professor, and was quite animated at this speech. So got some really nice hand movements, and it's a very kind of dynamic speaker. So okay, so I've culled down a few of the pictures here. But let's just say, I want to, these are the ones that I want to use. So this one is of our president. Oh, you know what? I'm going to add one more here just to get an idea. So I'm going to click tagged, and I'm going to show all of them. So that way I can see. So this is one of our vice presidents as well. So I'm going to select this picture because I want to make sure we get a picture of him sent off as well. I'm going to go up to the top. Turn on all the pictures again, not just the ones that I've tagged in camera. And then I'm going to sort back down to the ones that I've selected just on the keyboard here. So for our president and for our vice president, they have longer titles. I don't really want to type all of that. So I want to create a code replacement for our admins here. And this is something that I've done and kind of keep updated over time as I go. So I'm going to go ahead and open a new Excel spreadsheet. And the way that code replacement works is the first column needs to be the code, and the second column needs to be what you want it to be replaced with. So for this instance, we've got our president and then our vice president here, Michael. So for our president, I'm going to do her initials, which are PSW, and then Pamela is our president's name. I'll make this a little bit bigger so we can see what's going on here. Okay. And then for our vice president, I'm going to make sure actually, I'll do one more thing here. So I'll do a couple of variations on hers just to make it a little bit easier. So I'm going to do T for title, and then PSW. Let's use president, Pamela S. Whitten. And then FT, full title, PSW. So Indiana University, president S. Whitten. Okay. Nice thing is if your admin have a website, you can also just go in here and copy it. So this is our President's Cabinet website. I'm going to go down here and find Michael. So his initials would be MH. MH. Michael Huber. And then I'm going to go back and find his title, Vice President for University Relations. So President for University Relations, Michael Huber. There we go. Title, Michael Huber. Full title. Copy this again. Then I'm just going to add Indiana University to it. Oh, didn't quite get that. All right. So here's kind of two for our two VPs as they stand. President Whitten. So if I just need her name, you know, if I'm just using like the person shown field, not where I need her full title, I can just do PSW. Same thing with Michael. I will say the one cool feature about code replacements is they are case sensitive. So you could also conceivably create one for buildings on campus. So let's switch back over here to Chrome. Our registrar has building codes, has two-letter uppercase building codes for every building on campus, which is really nice because you know, you could print this out. You could print this sheet out and just put it in next to your monitor at work. And then if I didn't want to type Simon Scott Assembly Hall, I could just type AS. So I'll grab a couple of these and we'll throw them in here. This is, you know, for the sake of this demo, let's pretend that we're doing a, you know, overall one for our campus where I had some scenics to do as well. Format those. Maybe not. Showing off my lack of Excel skills right now. I don't believe the formatting matters here, just because it is. These are going to be a text file when they're done. So, okay. So let's just make that a bit nicer looking, because the official title would be Simon Scott Assembly Hall. Okay, so here we have like kind of a basic code replacement with our president, one of her vice presidents, and then a couple of buildings on campus. And we can put this all in one file. So to get this out, to make it an actual code replacement in Photomechanic, I'm going to hit save. First off, I'm going to recommend saving this as just a normal Excel spreadsheet. And that way, when it's time to update it, you just open this Excel spreadsheet up and update it, and then export out a text file from that, because once you save it as a text file, it's a little bit harder to work with in Excel after the fact. So I'm just going to save it to my desktop, and I'm just going to do IU code replacement. We'll just save it as an Excel doc, and then that way, if like one of their titles change or whatever, I can come back to this Excel document, make the changes in this nicer interface where I can actually see things a little bit better, and then later go in and export it out. So now that we've saved it as an Excel doc, I'm going to go ahead and save as. And then here's where we're going to actually save it in the file that it needs to be for code replacement. So I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to find tab delimited text.txt. This is what you need to save it as. You can do this as well in Google Sheets. As I mentioned, you can also do it in a just straight text editor. If you do it in a straight text editor, the only thing is you need to do a tab. So it would be PSW tab Pamela S. Whitten. So there needs to be a tab between the code and what you want to replace it with. So hit tab limited text. I'm going to hit save. See, here's where it says some of the features will be lost. Yep, say OK. All right. So now we've got our code replacement file. I'm going to flip back over to Photo Mechanic. And to load code replacements, they're kind of hidden. Go up to the top and go to Edit. Go to Settings. And I hit Set Code Replacements. And I'm going to click Add. And then right here's my text file. I mentioned the delimiter character. Here is where you can actually save that or set that. You can change it. By default, it'll probably be an equal sign. In previous versions, it was a backslash like that, or forward slash. I'm not sure which technical that one is, but we're going to leave that as an equal sign. Okay, so now our code replacement is loaded. So for here, I don't want to really type our president's full title, so I'm going to do equals full T PSW. And then as soon as I hit the equal sign, there it is. So now I have Pamela Swinton, and then I'm going to use the function delete and take over the spaces. So now I have the full, this photo is entirely captioned. For our workflow, we like to put people's names in the person shown field as well. So I just use the equals PSW and then hit the equal sign again. So that way we get it without her title, just her name. And hit save and next. And then I can do that here as well. So equals full T PSW equals. So there we go. So all of this was pre-written, and the only thing I really needed to fill out was just her name using the code replacement. Let's go find a photo of Michael here. So this was Michael Huber, our vice president. So equals full T for full title. Michael Huber equals. And there we go. So that saved me having to type all of that, which is very helpful. As I mentioned, it may be helpful once you have your code replacement done in Excel. Just hit, print this out and just have these next to your computer. And that way, if you forget someone's initials, or you're like, I don't know what the assembly hall, two-letter code is, that way they can be there for you to reference. I have mine printed out here off camera, where I can, if I forget one of our trustees' initials or what their code is, I can just grab it. So there's that. I will say one nice feature that I didn't actually show during the breakout session that I'll show here. So I filled out, all this information. Let's just say I wanted to do some specific keywords in this photo because it's our president speaking. If I don't want to have to fill all of this stuff out again, I can just hit copy right here and hit paste. And then actually, go to this one. So this one I haven't filled anything out yet. This is all just from the ingest. Hit paste. So there it filled in everything. So if I tweak and I do some different, fill out some different fields, or if I put some special instructions in here, this copy and paste function is super helpful because if there's redundant things that you're just needing to put the exact same caption on, this is a huge time saver that I found, especially during commencement where it's like, we'll have like 10 photos of the same person speaking from different angles. I can just hit copy and paste, and that speeds up my workflow. Save. Okay, so we'll turn our professors off here. Okay, so here's let's say these are the 4 photos that we're going to turn in from the shoot. I'm going to select all, and then I'm going to hit Command E for edit, and this is going to open up in Adobe Camera Raw. So I'm going to do, we'll just do some just bring up the exposure a little bit, drop the highlights a smidge. We'll take out a little bit of the grain. Okay, so let's just say we're done now. Once I have all the pictures done individually, I might need to increase his a little bit. And the color balance is I'm not for the sake of this, I'm not going to deal with the color balance on this one because this was kind of a funky convention center lighting. So I'm going to hit Shift and just select all of them over here on the left side. And then I'm going to go up to the top here and click the Convert and Save button. And so this allows you to basically save right out of Adobe Camera Raw. So I'm not really in Photoshop, I'm just kind of in Adobe Camera Raw the whole time. From this field, I'm going to go find that folder for the shoot. And then I'm going to find the 4res JPEG folder. And I'm going to click Select and Save. Okay, and then click Done. So now it is saved in, this is the folder again. So now it's saved those files right here. And so now they are toned, captioned, and all and kind of ready to go. One cool thing about Photo Mechanic, this is a trick I'm not sure if everyone knows, you can just drag a folder right onto the logo and it'll open it up in the program. So now I have, these are the raw files, and here's the edited caption JPEGs. So these are all ready to go. So for the next step, I'm going to hit Command A, and then I'm going to hit Command U for upload. And I'm going to bring up the file uploader. As I mentioned, we use our end destination is PhotoShelter, but if you're using a different digital asset management system that takes FTP, there's an FTP uploader as well. There's Box, there's Dropbox, there's SmugMug, a lot of different places a lot of different integrations here that you can kind of set up for your specific workflow needs. If you are using PhotoShelter, the PhotoShelter integration is pretty cool. So I can click on this. I've already got ours set up here. I've got it logged in and everything on our connections page. So here, now I'm like in our PhotoShelter. So I can go to our archive 2023, go to June, and then I can create a new gallery or collection. So for this one, I'm going to click a new gallery, inherit the access permissions. So the shoot, I'm going to copy the same thing that the shoot folder, the same name as the shoot folder. So 2023 06 14 BETC lunch. And, okay, I'm going to click create. Okay, so there's a folder, and then I'm going to hit send. And that will send them to PhotoShelter. And at this point, I can just tell our social media folks, hey, they're there, because I've already set up all the permissions on PhotoShelter side, so I don't really need to go in there unless I need to make a gallery-specific password or anything. Alrighty. I will say also there's a couple different, if you're not using like an uploader like FTP, there's also a really cool save function. So you can hit Command A, select all, and then Command, oops, wrong one. That was edit. Okay, hit Command S to save as. This is a cool feature. You can resize pictures. So if you wanted to resize them for Instagram, for example, you can have Photo Mechanic do all that without actually having to send them into Photoshop. You can have it saved to specific folders, by clicking down here. You have variables, so I'm sorry, snapshots. So if you set this all up for resizing for Instagram, for example, 1080, 72, and we convert to sRGB. I'm gonna scale it down so it's under a certain size limit. I can save a snapshot, and that way everything that's in this dialog I can just go back to it. So for example, we use exposure. So I have one for exposure where I have the maximum resolution already loaded in here. Another cool option is the copy function, which would be file, and that's right, it's Y. Command Y. And this is cool if you're sending photos to a server, or if you have, previously we used Google Drive, and so we had a shared drive where we would put our pictures at, that was mounted up as a kind of a cloud sync folder. So you could use this function to actually send the pictures directly from Photo Mechanic to where they need to go on Google Drive. And this is our previous, before we we switched to PhotoShelter. Here's some variables that we use to basically upload these to our Google Drive. So that's another option. That's something that we've, for years, that's what we would do. A couple different, ways that you can upload and kind of get the photos from your machine to the client or partner or wherever they need to go. I'm going to flip back over into PhotoShelter now that everything's uploaded. Click on June, and here's our files. So they have uploaded into our PhotoShelter. As you can see too, the stars that we put on there have stayed on. I'm going to click on this gallery and just show what I was talking about with the nice thing about the keywords. So here it shows that this was taken near the IU Bloomington campus. These were all those variables that we put in there: Bloomington, IU Bloomington. So I can click on IU Bloomington, and I can see everything that was taken at IU Bloomington. All the keywords that are clickable is just makes it really nice. Okay. So that's kind of the end of the demo. I will just put up this last couple slides here. Here's the QR code for the additional resources. That basically, there's a OneDrive folder that has this presentation, this recording, if you're watching it, PDFs with explanations of all the IPTC fields that we fill out, as well as like the snapshots that I used. Those are all in there. And then these hyperlinks are really helpful. The Camera Bits educational discount, the support portal, it's kind of like a knowledge base. There's every question you could possibly ask, like very nitty-gritty technical stuff is documented there. Photo Mechanic actually has a Facebook group, which is really helpful too, because people will chime in, and there's like a pretty good community of folks who use this program who can kind of help with, like, if you have like a really weird specific thing you're trying to execute, can't figure out how to do it, they're really helpful. So yeah, and with that, that's the end of the presentation. Here's my contact information. Feel free to reach out if anyone has any questions, and thank you guys so much for watching.